I think that might give me more trouble. Again, gentlemen, this won't be filed. There'll be one that's slightly corrected after court today. It won't have anything to do with court. It'll just be, I need a couple other numbers from the auditor, then we'll get that fixed. All right, ladies and gents. All right, we're recording, we're live, wired for sound, good to hear. I'm going to call this special meeting of the Hill County Commissioners Court to order this Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Let the record reflect here in the Hill County Courtroom, Hillsborough, Texas, and the Quorum of Commissioners present established. Jim, it's particularly good to see you back with us today. I'm glad that went well.
Good to be here.
This meeting is being held both in person and online. You can watch us on YouTube. We include the link in our agenda. As Paul, has anybody signed up to speak over the board before 8 a.m.? Nobody has today. All right, so we've got quite a few things. I think most people are here for number one, but I got a guy in here that I see here is for actually number 6, which is discuss and approve a final plat for Irish Hill Edition. You can either wait through the whole thing or I can go to you now.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I thought it would. All right, which case this is a plat that we previously approved a preliminary plat for, and this is going back to our development review committee. And it is the recommendation of the development review committee at this point to approve this final plat. This is going to be up off 2959 up in your neck of the woods. And it has met with TxDOT. And the biggest holdups was the curvature. I'm sorry, I said not 2959, I meant 934. The curvature of the road, working with TxDOT to get that straightened out where they're going to let things go. But all that's good. Everybody signed off. So at this point, it is just to you guys approve as a final plat.
What about our pledge?
Oh, special meeting. But if you want to do the prayer, I don't have to do that. At regular meetings, you usually do it. Special meetings, we don't normally have it on there.
I'm there.
That's all right. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So all that being said, is there any questions about this particular plat? Motion and a second to approve final plat of Irish Hills. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. You guys are signed, pass around, we're done. Thank you very much. You get it filed with the clerk. And we should be good. Well, she's not gonna let you take it from now since they signed it, but yeah,
I can walk it over there.
walk it over here in a minute or two. So, all right, good deal. Thank you. All right, no problem. So at this time, is there anybody here for open forum today? Anybody here to discuss something that's on, not on the agenda, but you feel is on your heart and you want to tell us about? No confessions. No good stories.
We like to thank whoever did the road dash yesterday.
Yeah, you're not kidding about that. That was nice.
But with the rain, it has a smack in the finger. I don't know that.
I've been praying for a lot of rain lately. Not so much for me. I don't want to be selfish. I've seen it before, but for my 11-year-old, you know, it's been a while. So, all right, in which case this goes with that. All right, so we're going to go back then. What everybody's here for, I think, is number 1, and that is discussion and or action on presentation by Evergreen Solutions LLC. I really don't think we're going to take action today because we don't know what we're going to see, but we're going to see something. So at this time, go ahead. You have the floor, Evergreen. Tell me what you got and what it looks like and where we're going.
All right, my name is Mark from Evergreen Solutions. Thank you all very much for having me. I've got a presentation here that before we walk through everything with the share and high level. We can address questions that we have with this.
Hey, Chris, when you get set, can you turn that thing about 25 degrees or so, just so it kind of sees out in the audience and the court? Oh, sorry, Philip, I didn't see you sitting like that. I had 2 people in the room just lined up perfectly. Well, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I'm saying something. It's just hard. Come on, grab a seat. Mike, how are you doing today? I can see you back there.
We won't be the first time.
Sometimes nice when you blend into the background. Come on, grab a seat, so. Mark, you got to come. Go ahead.
All right.
Well, we thank you all very much for having me. Like I said, my name is Mark Wolf from the Project Management Solutions. We've been overseeing the archive, and one of the people up for the solution recommendation is along the rest of the team. What I'm going to do today is I will. Yeah, there we go. Try to get this to. Okay, so I'm going to be walking you through essentially a high level review overview, so everybody's on the same page of the project from the beginning up until now. I will focus a little bit more on the outcomes. First, the recommendations, I'm sure everybody wants to hear. But I do think it's important to talk about the steps that we took to get here, the goals of the study from the beginning of the engagement, and one of the things that we had in mind as we came forward with the recommendation. The current system findings and market results, those don't focus on, the two main pillars of what brought us to this point today. So the current system is what are you all doing now? What does that internal system look like the way you're initiating conversation now? And then the market is what are your peers doing? If you're competing for talent, and obviously if one of your employees, you want them to stay here or here and keep a high performing ones, you don't want to go anywhere elsewhere. It's important to know what people are doing as well. Then the recommendations already, we'll focus on that a little bit for today. The second goals that we had at the beginning of the project, essentially there are two main goals, and obviously we get into sub goals and get more detail. But the two main things that we look to do is ensure that the systems that we recommend have a high degree of internal equity, and that means how the positions relate to one another within the cabinet. You have one position with more leadership, one position with more complexity. You would expect that position to have a level of conversation that goes along with that. And so you would expect that position to be compensated fairly in a manner that's, hey, you've got the same job for the person, but you've got additional supervisory duties, got maybe captain the higher recommendation for pay. At the same time, if you have people doing the exact same thing, you expect them to make a very similar amount of money. Again, you don't listen to two people that pay different thing, you have the same productivity, one makes twice as much as the other. The external equity then gets into making comparisons between your positions and elsewhere. So I already talked about that a little bit. Again, your employees, you are not only an option for them, there are other options, obviously the local market, but also we've seen the increased competition. Some positions could potentially go vertically, regionally. Some people could move. They can decide, hey, if I mean twice, that's what I need by. So I'll go a couple hours of work. I can do that. May not be $8 a dollar, but they have other options, and people understand that. So the recommendations that we want to make, as we in factor both of those things in, it is not a one-to-one market analysis. The average pay market is, let's say, $50,000. Doesn't mean that the employee would slide on exactly $50,000. The internal piece to cover the play. We could say, hey, based on compression, maybe we slide a little bit higher, 52,000. If people would space and something else, maybe we slide a little bit lower. But we do want to keep that on the goal of market competitiveness and internal equity. So we do have four main phases that we went through over the course of the engagement. Phase one is outreach. That's really about us getting to know the organization. So we did have a consultant come out and visit and meet with employees directly in those meetings. We also critically shared job surveys with employees where they had the opportunity to provide details and information for us about the job, the duties, the tasks that they performed. And so that was key for us because we didn't want to just make comparisons based on job titles. We didn't want to just make comparisons based on what may or may not be an outdated job description. We wanted to get a record from the employees so they can tell us what do they do, what are their tasks, what are their responsibilities. We use that in the formulation of our recommendations. Phase two is the internal analysis. So after we come out in person, we met employees after we gave them those job surveys. We analyze that data. We have to read through the information we provided. We also look through all of the information we provided, by your government. So again, the pay systems that are in place right now, job descriptions, or charts, any of that kind of information you want to go through, make sure you have that understanding. And that's the internal analysis. Make sure we're familiar with now, so we can understand how to tweak that and we can recommend changes if needed. Phase three is the external analysis, and we'll share sort of a more detailed finding of what we did find in the external market. But that's comparing you to basically two types of organizations: your local competitors, so people in the local market that you're competing directly against for talent, but also more information from providers potentially across the state. So other counties, maybe different size, similar service offerings, similar demographics. You don't want to just look, you have other people dealing with the same exact problems that you're dealing with. So we'll talk a little bit more detail about that extra wants shortly. Phase one is the solution where I've already talked about. We bring everything together. We bring those recommendations, focus on the external equity and the reporting phase, which this is in the portion of the reporting phase now, with us actually sharing this information. We do have documentation going along with us county that can be shared publicly. Again, that they'll basically got a little bit more detail than what I have time to go through today. The findings, the recommendations, how we arrived at the place doing that. So with the JAT completion, so that JAT stands for the Job Assessment Tool. That is the survey we select on employees. So just to highlight again, the reading participation we saw from employees, which we were happy to see. We feel like this is an excellent response. We do typically shoot for about 70% participation. We got 69.81. So again, basically right on target. We love that 100%. We typically don't get it. So you guys get right sort of on that benchmark number before. But notice at the bottom of the classification summary right here, you got 85% of your jobs right. And so what that means is you might have 10 people doing the same job. If 2 of them participate or 6 of them participate, we have some empty surveys there. But the job that formally still works. It doesn't mean that the individuals who did the survey are represented by the peers. And so we say, okay, this is what the peer classifications do. But it does mean they're still covered, and so we'll have to look at an outdated basic job description or understand what the role used to do. We did have a supervisor review of those job services, so again, that is a validation tool from Evergreen. It's not that we trust the supervisor, we don't trust the employees, but it's we really need to have a second set of eyes looking at things. Because I'm going to get a recommendation, I'm going to say, oh, this person is doing something different than the jobs you guys, or if we need to match the employee to a higher level job in the market, and we originally thought based on the job survey, we want to make sure that somebody else has verified that and said, yeah, that's what they do here. We've done a lot of these stuff, we don't want to take that external or those other surveys that we've done, we want to focus on the county. And so for that reason, the supervisor will say, yeah, they do a little bit differently here than you might have seen that place. That's what we use that validation. So again, 70% of those surveys respond to supervisors. So basically, we're on a benchmark we shoot for. We do have sort of a high level department summary there. So these are the departments that didn't get 100%. You can still see they still had an excellent response rate overall. There's a few again, 25% and going up 4 people. So there's 3 surveys not submitted to the department. 1 person department again. These are just the departments that are listed in the employee data set that we received. So again, you might refer to it as a bridge. We've got sort of divided into units. That's the data system we received. So overall, again, an excellent response rate. We're very happy with it. It right the sort of benchmark promise for. So with the current system, update that you are utilizing right now, not as structured as some other people have. Obviously, talking about these is a minute. You don't have dedicated pay ranges, pay grades. You say, oh, I'm at grade 7, or I can go to grade 9 if I get a promotion, things like that. We have a relatively good job space of employees appropriately, so we didn't see a significant degree of compression, meaning that employees are making one of the supervisors or they're making the same amount. For the most part, I'd say there are no exceptions, but for the most part, we did see some spacing between jobs and we expect to see spacing between. And so again, those are really the high level takeaways there is that while it is an unstructured system, again, it was administered in a way that didn't create enormous challenges, but it really doesn't help employees to be able to look forward and say, how am I going to be paid? What's going to happen if I move to this other job? What's going to happen if I get a promotion? Where can I be in 2 years? Those questions are not really answered, and most of your peers are going to have more structure than what you want. And so again, that's something we're going to talk about in a few minutes. I do want to highlight that here, sort of just not having full raising wages, and that's something that does tend to require a little bit from peers. With that external market survey, I'm not going to go through everyone, but you see over here, we do look across the state of Texas. Typically with all Texas surveys, which we do dozens and dozens per year, we don't go outside of the state. But we do take a little bit more of that regional look. So we have some of the local cities that we compete against, some local counties, significant counties across the state that have, similar demographics in some ways, similar populations, similar service offerings, et cetera. We did have 15 different years in responded. All resources are adjusted for cost of living. So again, especially in the cities, biggest Texas, we understand not everybody has the exact same cost of living. And so we do adjust everything into your local terms of cost of living. So what that means is, when we adjust that, if yours is in higher paying region or an area with higher cost of living, they may have a higher salary, but they not equate to the more bottom. So you might be making 50,000 here, you might be making 55,000 there, but again, they have to spend that extra $5,000 on rent, on gas, on groceries. They're buying the same amount of things, and the money's not working. So simply you would normalize that to your area. The same exact thing is true if you're looking at even for Wolf County, somewhere with a lower cost of living, you might make 50,000, and you make 45,000. That may go the same distance. That may be a salary that's actually worth more than lower cost of living. So we do make those adjustments for all of our market streets there. We did look at 15 classifications specifically to compare directly to the market. So that benchmarking process is important, that it allows us to get a great sample across the organization to understand what each department, what each area, what each job family is paying. But if you have two jobs that are very closely related, so if you have, again, just as an example of having an assistant and a senior admin assistant or office manager, you can look at those two jobs together. And so here's what the admin assistant pays. Because those jobs are related, we know that higher level job needs to be 5% up because they have additional complexity or additional leadership. Maybe 10%, depending on the survey, you have different percentages. And so as the benchmark position moves up, we move both jobs together because we understand those jobs are related, they have to have that space for internal activity. So that's how those two things work together in the survey. So when we do look at the market differentials, essentially the actual pay that the employees are receiving in other jurisdictions compared to what you're receiving here is about 19% different. And so what that means is, on average, this is not a consistent set of every single position or every single person is exactly the same. But on average, you all did see a market gap. It does show that your pay is lower than what's being received in the market. And so some positions were a little bit more competitive, some positions were even less competitive. And so with that comparison, overall, we did find that you will need a market adjustment to bring your pay in line with the market. And so again, as we get to the recommendations, there are a few different things that we do in order to address this. So the first thing that we did is we are recommending a pay plan that essentially grades assigned to the positions. And so each of those grades is going to have a set salary in the position make. They will be able to improve with the longevity from what you'll have, but they're going to invest that pay for the employees. They'll be able to look and say, hey, I'm at this grade and somebody else is 2 grades higher than them. And there is again going to be a defined set reason for that. I think that God either has individual market practitioners from other organizations, they have more additional complexity. And that's an exercise that we do with internally. We have here at this point, again, recently, we're still working through finalizing every single recommendation for that with your county internally, and now we're presenting that for the first time in the next work year. So with those pay grade assignments, we are recommending grade assignments based on the position's internal and external equity necessary. So again, keeping in mind, just like I said, the average pay in market is exactly 50,000. To use an example, you could see the position slotted slightly higher or slightly lower. It does not mean that the exact number that we gave the market is where we go. But that is a blended analysis that internal equity. And so, yes, sure.
When we were doing reviews, from your employment with county, based on job descriptions. And you're paying slot.
That is correct. So the slotting, yeah, that is, so we slot classifications into the ACO. So we say a person in this job, these job duties, who is responsible for certain tasks and responsibilities, they are slotted into the ACO based on those duties. So you will see if you have multiple people in the same role and the same title, responsible for the same duties, they would be recommended for that same pay grade and therefore that same pay. Absent any of those additional adjustments for longevity that kind of separate.
So someone for your 20 years or 2 years, same job title, they're gonna make exactly the same.
Correct.
In your longevity supplements.
Correct.
Longevity.
That's and that's a great clarification. It's exactly what I was getting at. If I go into that detail, again, I think that's an excellent clarification to put there. So we did see some classifications that require larger adjustment than others based on the market difference. So like I mentioned, that market difference by 19%. It's not the same for everyone. If your job was only 5 or 6% below the market, you may not have had a need to raise your position with a little higher pay grade very much. When you get a small up, you go up 1 or 2 grades from where you're close situated to right now. But somebody else who's 25% below the market, it's very helpful to them to be doing a 5% adjustment. They're still well below the market. So we recommended larger adjustments for the classifications that were further below the market. And again, slide the HRI in the market. So the recommendations essentially really going to pause how we can place employees and put them in this plan. And so the costs that we are recommending, this is countywide, these are salary costs. It's a big number, but we are recommending essentially slotting employees into this piece of the system in such a way that would cost about $1.6 million. And that's for every single employee, the database that we have, gets slotted in there. It is about a 16% adjustment to payroll. And so again, with that market difference, you can see not every position needed to move the same amount, but some are going to get larger, some we get smaller. And that would represent, again, for the average employee to move about a $7,000 increase. And so again, that's the recommendation we have. It does get more specific. Again, we do have a document that we worked on and shared the individual classification. But this is a high level of information that talks about where your employees can go, what are the changes that we're recommending, and then each individual classification can handle slightly differently based on their own data. So that's the high level information that we'll share today. I'm certainly happy to address questions on methodology, on the results, and anything that we would like to have. Dan, happy to cover.
Floor is open to questions, folks. I think we'll wait a minute on that then, go ahead.
Okay, I will address some of the FAQs that we typically get. Oh, actually, first, we have some chats here. We can see it in the questions in the chat. I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like they're mostly just questions about audio. Okay, so I'll leave this up here. If anyone online does have any questions, please feel free to post those, and then we see them come up here with the information there. Again, also very sort of the FAQs that we typically get from presentations like this. And again, if it jogs somebody's memory, and oh, wait a second, that makes me think about how does this relate to me. These recommendations that we have, we feel confident recommendations. These are preliminary recommendations that we provide to the county. The county is able to go through, review the information. There are questions that are out. We've already seen a few questions that have come out to the county, and they said, wait a second, we can take another look at this job. Keep in mind, again, the information and recommendations we make are based on the data we receive. We did have a 70% responded to surveys. We said 30% of classifications did not respond. So there are times when employees will come and say, or supervisor or department head would say, hey, I think my position is a little bit too low. We do have included with this contract 1 year of dedicated support and maintenance for the county. We're not strict on the 1 year deadline. We're never going to tell you, oh, well, the 1 year expired yesterday, so we're around. What I would say is, again, absolutely you want to utilize that in county, you utilize that with questions. We work with Rachel as well. And so again, if there are questions that come up, reach out to me and say, hey, they start out to see what we found, and here's why. Sometimes we just that a department head to come forward and say, who we know serving the basis in, maybe they were new, maybe they provide some status, and we take a look at that. That is absolutely an avenue that we can do. But at the same time, we wouldn't expect to see drastic major changes. Because again, we did have a good data set of information to receive. Another question that we typically get is, employers, when am I going to find out if I get again, we don't have a specific date yet. Obviously, it depends on things adopted, and that's the group deciding to work with this, how to introduce the county to do for that. But everybody does work as well with the county to communicate results out individually. So what we would typically do is either a printed letter or an email letter that we go to every employee and say, here's your name, here's your old pen, here's your new pen, here's what's changed. And then we go into a quick high level summary of the report. So we contain the same book that we talked about here, talk about the internal and external equity. We do also have, as I mentioned, that written report. We typically finalize that and then share that with the county shortly after a decision is made here by our group. One of the reasons that's the group is With our recommendations, we've come forward and as an example, we said maybe the preliminary costs that you're going to incur, so we with the system about $1.6 million. If the direction we get well, the budget and to handle $1.4 million, 6, how do we trim it? Or maybe we handle $1 million, what do we do with a 2-year implementation? We can work with those kinds of things. We do always recommend implementing the system as quickly as you can. 2 years system implementing, when they have additional challenges and struggles. That a one implementation doesn't again, that's the direction that we receive here. We can absolutely help you model and work on those different scenarios. The employees would then receive that information again after something is simply here.
What's the cost to the county for the implementation period?
Are you saying the
They
implementation?
have to come around to help make that transition.
It is included at no additional charge with the contract you've already signed. So again, any of the additional rework, any questions that you all have, that's all included. We understand you all have a budget, we don't try to this cost X $1,000 to help with that. That's included.
But 1.6 million and change, that's for salary. Does it include things like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare? Does it have all the other deducts in it, or is that?
That comes straight from the salary number that we put in there.
With specialized skills.
Correct, yeah.
What's a recommendation on how you do one of these? I was told every 3 years.
Typically, it's about every 3 to 5 years, and it really depends on how much of the upkeep you can do on your own. So every 3 years is a good idea, especially for counties or organizations who aren't going to do much upkeep on their own. If you all are able to do mini salary survey position, but if you see, hey, we have a lot of turnover in this classification, sure, let's not do a salary survey on our own. If you're able to say, hey, let's look at the finance issue, or let's look at public safety, let's look at a specific department, you can do some of that on your own. You may be able to expect that in 4 or 5 years.
So since you already have all the slots, as I call it, it would be cheaper for you all to come in 3 years from now than you did this time, because y'all don't have to do all that extra.
Yeah, we absolutely could do essentially what we call that as a compensation study instead of a compensation classification study. That is a common way that organizations will go, is they'll do a full classification review, maybe every other study. So if you do it every 3 years, you absolutely could come in 3 years, you're a little bit cheaper, because we would look at the slide that we already have. We would still look at adjusting and refine. Job descriptions have changed of that nature, but it wouldn't be as in-depth in the view where we come out, collect all that information from employees, put them through that process. And so, yes, absolutely, many organizations do that as well. And have a little bit cheaper reviews, say, can you make sure we're still on track? Can you make sure we move our system right now, we maintain most of the internal equity, making changes as needed.
Yeah, as Dallas Fort Worth moves further south with better jobs and everything.
Yep.
We're gonna be funding that at some point.
And we've absolutely worked with several organizations a little bit south of the Dallas Fort Worth in the past couple of years. And that's what they're seeing too, is it used to be sort of that northern portion is the most competitive of those cities in south, as it's sort of pretty further south, they're seeing that competition, and it is going to continue to extend towards your.
We can realistically see those preliminary numbers for March that.
So to me, that's going to be determined by this group, by the county, we're going to share. We do have the information. We've shared it format with county developers, a little bit of review. Typically, an organization would not release that to employees until some sort of decision has been made by the suit. So again, we don't want to do know what's going to happen here, what's going to be the resolution. As we share the numbers, employees start to see, oh, I paid the change by $7,000, $9,000. They go out and they upgrade their couch and whatever. And then it says that, oh, we really can't put it in the budget, we have to do 2 years. We don't want any employees to be back by that. So again, I'm going to try this group and say it's going to depend on when we can realistically look at those numbers. And typically would be a 2-week turnaround after that, where we'd say, let's go through the department records. Do we see any anomalies? Do we see any together, ensure that as quickly as we can.
Yeah. When those numbers come out, is there going to be some wiggle room if so we feel that the numbers need to be higher?
At that number, I don't see how. I'll be honest with you, 1.6 million, I'm figuring out right now how I'm gonna do this. So I think the answer is no at the moment until I can get better numbers. But again, we've got to look through the whole thing. This body has to make their decisions. We'll communicate with the financial people. Any questions we've got to them in a week or two, I imagine we'll have that out for review.
Mark, on the LSA exemption status,
Sure. So one of the other changes that actually can make these impact on individuals and on employees is with those job surveys that were submitted to us, we did perform an FLSA review. And so FLSA review does the Domestic Relations Standards Act, which actually gets into exemption from overtime. And so some employees right now, you all may be familiar that you may be like some employees who do receive overtime. If you work more than full-time level than 40 hours a week, you could, potentially be an exempt employee, which we receive overtime. If we see any recommended changes based on the service, if we see somebody who's not exempt right now, but they've submitted job tasks and duties, which would potentially put them in line for exemption, we did make those recommendations to the county to send those to review. From your labor attorney. We're not attorneys, so we do try to start out saying these are draft recommendations that we recommend you send to an attorney. But we typically identify the positions. We did identify as well. We did show going to review, and that's based on the information we can see. So again, if an employee have leadership, decision making discretion, those already, you could be in line for a change, and that could potentially come out with the adoption of the Senate.
What's up then?
with all your surveys, all around the county, what departments were the most wonky with the figures? What compared to?
I'm not positive off the top of my head. I could definitely provide some of that information to the county. We could send sort of a summary. Again, you said classification information.
Employees.
Yeah, we can definitely send something of that. Right. And we do in the final written report, that information will be available there as well. So we have a chapter in the report, which is the market summary chapter, and it'll actually go to specific detail. It'll list some same organizations have on there. I don't know, I wouldn't want to say the part of it, I just don't want to say one that again, I'm not positive on it, so I apologize about that. I can send something and I can get something in writing, send over, to the county, and then it will be in the final report.
One other thing I'd like is a list of the people who didn't respond to this.
You said you'd like
A list of the people that we send JATs to that didn't respond and the supervisors did not review it. I'd like
Sure.
that. Thank you.
We have that report, and again, I don't know, I can typically send reports to work, I have. One of the things that I'm looking on that those is. We understand organizations change all the time, and so it is possible somebody was not here, somebody was promoted, somebody was in roles, we moved. Fair enough. That's the only caveat with their absolutely, we can send you those names.
Thank you.
Those two.
And I just want to read one more thing, you don't have to read all of the red, one area.
Yes.
So this thing is part of the same, where it takes the merit raises out, so you're always on a playing field with people with a similar job classification, it would just be COLA raises.
COLA, longevity, specialized pay. Okay.
And that's that type of a system, it is the most consistent if you're looking for that straight internal equity based on job and qualifications, obviously the merit is but it is this that's one time asking you to do certain duties, you receive certain pay, consistency, and then you can differentiate yourself some of things.
So it's set up if somebody starts there 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. Then they make the same money as the day members.
They have the same base pay, but then again, they can be differentiated based on longevity, even if you have these special skills or certifications that apply to your position, there could be differences in that take home pay.
Yep.
But the base pay will be the same because the duties are the same. You're asked to do the same things as the other person. And so again, if you receive a promotion, if you have, hey, I'm working in a more senior capacity, that's one of the things that can be looked at. Says, hey, this job really sucks, because I've been here for 10 years, so I'm asked to do different things and different duties. There are always going to be slight variations within jobs. No two people and no two classifications, but here in another county are going to be 100% the same. But sort of that best practice, we look for HR, somewhere between 70 and 75% overlap. That yeah, most of your tasks say almost all of your tasks are doing the same things, and then you can have a little bit of variation, deviation for the remaining few percent of your position. Yes.
I just wanted to mention, I'm not sure on our JP5, I noticed that I actually on the list of not all recording, but it said if you had 5 employees, but there's only 2 of us, so. I think a couple of our offices were.
One thing I will actually mention with that's an excellent point, and I think we should, because of the data sort of those food changes between now and this point in time when we submit the JDC. We did also find when we did the final solution recommendation file before we put this draft forward, there were a few departments that were off. And so we have made those changes to the recommendations file. That is a good point. There could have been a few of those departments that were off in that survey. And that's something we must have used for the recommendation. That was just shared for one of the overall numbers. We had to participate. That is a good point. And when we did something, we'll be there before we send over that list to chat for. We can look at those departments as compared to the recommendation file about it. Some of those departments. With the solution or not with the JDC? Oh, you look at the data, well, oh, okay. Yeah.
They just some of the possible.
Okay. I knew we had some kind of investigative.
Other questions?
Online.
Well, I guess thank you very much. What we're gonna look forward to now is the recommendations file, reviewing that with the treasurer, getting it to the commissioners for their review. And figuring out how we make this work.
Absolutely. And like I said, any questions, concerns, thoughts, again, please feel free to share with the judge, Better as well, just, let us know, we're happy to be there, they'll send you answers or more detailed information, so as you go with your hand on the file.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
But
you.
your comments will be made public, right?
in that final report that Lisa delivered, that's correct, we typically in that file, we are not going to include everybody's name, so you're not going to see, well, John.
Yeah, it's John.
Correct.
You can see the file.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Oakley. Thank you very much for the presentation. Gentlemen, I have no action for you at this point. This is more of an introduction to what we're looking at. Before you leave today, well, maybe after you leave today, Miss Parker, Rachel, can you make sure that these 4 gentlemen get a copy of that file, the latest and greatest recommendation file, so they can start reviewing it? We can go from there, see what that looks like. This is not the end of this proposal today, just the beginning for it. Now I've got a better idea of what we're looking at. The number is a large number, guys. I'm not going to lie. To swing that's going to be a chore. I'm not telling you it's undoable by any means. It's just going to be a chore. So
We split that over the next 3 years.
no, I don't want to. I'll just be honest with you. I think that works faith with our employees. We said that we're going to have to do certain things around here. We're going to take care of pay. If we wait 3 years to institute it, that's here and paid up here again. We keep getting behind. That's it. So I think that we can swing this if we're smart about it, but that means there's some things that people have asked for that ain't gonna be in this budget. I mean, that's all there is to it. That's going to be the biggest question is how do I pay for it? And not only just salary portion, but the additional benefits, social security, federal FICA, retirement. I'd say I'm figuring 20 just to be safe. I'm figuring 20 just to be safe. Because you got to figure out retirement in.
So that's a figure.
7% and 765.
7%, 765. Then the retirement life insurance is a fraction of that. There's a couple of things that go into that equation as well. The reason, you know, our total number we use as a general rule of thumb is 33, but that includes health insurance, which we're not doing, you know, that's where you're taken care of here. So that's, again, there's some questions on how we're going to work this and we need to get down, start looking at it and figure it out. That's all there is to it.
Nearly $2 million.
More than that. More than that. And frankly, I don't have that much. I mean, that's all there is to it. There is a certain amount here that we can do. After that, it becomes interesting how we do things. So we got to figure that out and go forward. Again, anything we do is better than where we're at, but I don't want to implement this over a couple of years. We need to do everything we can do this year. That's the problem is we're losing people now and we're not retaining people now. We're not bringing new people in that are the quality that we need now. All those things, those aren't going to go away if I take this for 3 years. And I'm not saying it's all going to go away overnight anyway, but at least we're competitive in that field. And if we don't try to do what we can, give me some time to work through the math. It's just mathematics. That's all it is, folks. And it comes down to how much, where, and how do we do it. There are some hard and fast things in here that we can't change. But we'll figure that out as we go forward. So I've got my work cut out for me. Wasn't planning on going vacation next week anyway. So Anything else on the Evergreen Solutions? Okay, well, hearing none, I'm gonna go to number 2, since this is fresh in our mind. That's discussion and or action or roll call vote for proposing tax rate, scheduled hearing and meeting to adopt. Guys and gals, where we're at right now is you have a document in front of you that says proposed budget is not technically the proposed budget. In the 2021 legislative session, they changed 111 of the local government code, which is basically our guidebook to how we budget. Inasmuch, it used to say under 111-006 that the county judge had till the last day of the 9th month of the fiscal year to file a proposed budget. Then after you filed that budget, you had all the way out here till September 30th to adopt. Well, no longer says that. It now says by August the 15th. Oh, look, it's the 15th. So what we've got today is proposed budget. It also has a timeline on it now. Once I file it, it's got 25 days. We have to take action. Now, what are the teeth to that? I honestly don't know, and I don't want to be the guy that finds out. It might be their attorney general slaps you on the wrist, maybe you get an orange jumpsuit. I doubt that, but at the same time, we've put together a schedule. It leaves us a little wiggle room to take some action. This budget that I printed off of the report this morning is not what I'm going to file this afternoon. It's very, very close, but there are some adjustments I'm working with the auditor on, working with the treasurer on. It really doesn't have anything from Evergreen. It's going to look like the salaries this morning. We just simply don't have the time to put this in today, the massive amount of data we're going to have to do. What you're looking at, by the way, is not the Gravity workbook. We sent them an email and told them to go pound sand. This is what we've created out of an Excel file, printed into a PDF, and I rearranged in order. It is all 137 pages, and I only got to this about 10 o'clock last night. And when I say I understand there was a lot of help from Mrs. Lewis in this thing as well. The expenditures, for the most part, pretty close to where we've talked about. Everything we talked about in these budget sessions are in here. The revenues are spot on. They've been over 100 times with Saab and Chrissy. I feel pretty good about that. We need to put the remaining INS numbers in there. Basically, some calculate. We have to calculate this correct. But what is the amount of bonded indebtedness we're holding moving forward? What does that look like? Those are just numbers we have. We need to update. One of the other things I need to go back through the payroll system, and one of the functions I put in is we have 26 payrolls a year. That's not entirely accurate. We actually have 26.0719 payrolls a year. We budget that at 26.1, so you'll see those numbers adjusted as well. I'm telling you all of this so that you can look on this document and you can go to the table of contents, and then past table of contents, we show you a recapitulation page, and then you'll see statistical data on page 8. And statistical data on page 8. As you well know, there's a couple of different tax rates nowadays. We have a no new revenue rate, which that leads us to exactly where we were last year. We have the voter approval rate, which leads us to an election that nobody wants to have because we got to pay for it. And quite frankly, it's not necessary. The last but not least is the proposed budget. What we're proposing is a budget of an M&O of 0.357019, an INS rate of 0.014862 for a total general fund of 0.371881. That brings us about 3.49% increase over last year, which does not keep us up with inflation, but we are limited. That is what we can do. Next is the FM lateral proposed rate of 0.063753. Again, that brings us up to 3.49% increase. Doesn't keep up with inflation, as you guys know, but that is the maximum that we are allowed to do. I have proposed those numbers because without those numbers, this Evergreen solution is a pipe dream. We don't have the money to do it. Just frankly, we can't sustain it. So that's the budget rate you've got in front of you if we intend to go forward. And I intend to vote for that rate. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why I put it in there. That being said, without that rate, we don't have the money necessary to deal with the payroll. And so I don't mean to back anybody in a corner. That's not my goal. I'm just telling you the hard facts about the math, how the math works on things. We have to attract and retain employees. To do so, it costs money. To do so, we have to be able to put a tax rate in. That being said, even at the proposed tax rate, it still suppresses the overall tax rate by a little more than 2 cents. So you can go from 45 to 43. That includes M&O, INS on general and the FM lateral in that. You're still going to see a 2 cent tax cut. So Justin, where's most of this coming from? Well, in the general fund, pretty straightforward. We picked up about $306 million in new construction. And in the road and bridge, about $599 million in change in new construction. The majority of that's solar farms, wind farms. That's what it is. That's the largest majority. That's not to say that praise didn't go for my house. It surely did. But that's not where a majority of this came from. The largest majority of this comes from new construction that has been brought into the county. So One of the benefits is it's going to continue to lower the tax rate each year and give us the operating revenue that we need to successfully retain employees and attract new employees. That being said, that is the proposition there. And then on our agenda, forgive me, I've got everything lined out in a place that makes sense. Here, I need to find our reps calendar. I left that little on my desk and follow. At least I knew where it was this time. So on the calendar, then we've got some dates coming up, things that need to be done. And already I can tell you from the calendar I proposed several weeks back, there's going to be some deviations. One of the biggest deviations that I was on this today, asked you guys to propose elected official salaries. I don't have the information necessary to do that today. So that'll be next Tuesday, Commissioners Court. We have to propose the electeds. Let me tell you why, because when they moved all these timelines up, what they didn't do is go back into 158 of the government code and say, hey, we moved these up too. So they didn't go to the tax code and move any of those notifications. So I still have these deadlines to meet. So that being said, today, August the 15th, by 5 o'clock today, I'll file this proposed budget. Again, it's not going to be a surprise to anybody. It's what we've talked about, what we've seen. On this 15th, we're going to have to take a record vote on proposed tax rate and schedule hearing and meeting to adopt. And so that public hearing, I have it proposed right now on the 5th day of September, and the meeting to adopt also on the 5th day of September, getting those things done on the 5th of September. Also today, Commissioners Court, I said proposed elected official salaries. That's not going to happen today. We don't have the necessary information to do it, and we'll get to that next Tuesday, see what that looks like. And frankly, I'm not throwing Evergreen on the bus. They're working on time crunch. We got to this party late, frankly, and that's the only reason. We can still get the deal done, but we've got about 7 days now to make some decisions and then come in this court and act on it. Notice a tax rate hearing required to be on the county website today. So as soon as we do this, proposed tax rate form, Chrissy, do you still have that in your file? You'll shoot that to me. I need it, and we'll get that to Philip so he can post it on the website. And so we will send that over. It is not going to run in the paper on the 17th. It will actually run in the newspaper on the 21st. That's how that's going to work out, is the tax rate notice will run on the 21st. So these are kind of where we're headed at. Does anybody have any questions about any of that?
If I get it, then I think. Oh, wait, today's Tuesday, never mind.
Yeah, I saw, I called them yesterday, we confirmed, that's not the same thing, but they said, well, you can send us something and just call us if it's good. I said, well, what if they tell us it's not good, then what do we do? So, yeah, I didn't want to do that to you. Anyway, then you can see from here that we have some notices where public hearing budget runs in the paper. I mean, so we've got to run the tax rate in the paper. We have to elected salaries have to go in the paper next Tuesday. The reason I have to propose elected official salaries, not only do they have to run in the newspaper, we have to give every elected official the opportunity to file a grievance if they think their salary is too low. You guys remember that process? Well, no one here except for me has done that, and you were on that. So we have a couple different ways we can do that. We've had two, and both of them got slapped down. So, and they both made the newspaper too. Don't know what that means. Anyway, everything said and done, there is a timeline that we have to abide. So going forward, after today, the clock is ticking for me, and I have to get certain things done at a certain time. So there ain't going to be a lot of extra time in my life in the next couple of weeks. That's fine. That's part of this job. But the first thing I need to do today is to ask that we propose a tax rate. And since I'm not hearing a lot of talk around the table, I'm going to propose a general fund tax rate of and maintenance and operation of 0.357019, an INS rate for the general fund of 0.014862. That is my proposal for the general tax rate, and I propose an FM lateral rate of 0.063753. That brings us to a combined total rate that you will find here in the back of your book. Again, if you have more questions about allocations, if you'll look under the tab that says supporting documentation, that total tax rate is going to be 0.435634, 2 cents lower. Yes, ma'am.
Talking about the INS rate, or is the number the correct number? I mean,
You calculated it, so now I'm a little worried.
the numbers that I got, which wasn't, I mean, I think it was right. You said something about we're gonna go back and look at the INS.
No, not the INS, the actual amount of bonded indebtedness, which we disclose on this budget.
Oh, so then we need to do this.
Not worried about the number.
Okay.
You scared me back there. I'm Anyway, cool. All right, we're on the same page again.
Second, you even lowered
The heartburn down a little bit.
you lowered the FM level.
I did not lower it. It was forced down because the maximum you can take is 3.4999 repeating. That's the maximum. Or you can go for a voter approval rate to have an election. It'll cost us about 40,000, which I am certain you will not win. I say certain. I could be wrong, but that's.
Second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the proposed tax rate? Everybody gets quiet at this point, don't you? That's why they pay us the big buck. Yeah, go ahead. I thought somebody online had something to say. All right, well, in which case then, I have to call a record vote. When any matters of tax, we'll do this again as an adopted, so it's not going to be up by the other hand up at once. If you would put down, and as my custom, I will start voting myself. I'll not ask you to do something I will not, and I will vote in the affirmative. Commissioner Holcomb, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Commissioner Crumpton, how do you vote? Commissioner Hawkins, how do you vote? Mr. Lake, how do you vote? All right, the motion is unanimous and passes. Again, we have overall proposed tax rate of 0.365634, making up a general tax rate. That's rates made up by 0.371881 the total general. That's M&O and INS, and an FM lateral of 0.063753. Okay. Got that part out of the way. We'll get that. Chris, can we get that notice from you? Like, you're freaking awesome. Okay, I figured it was from previous years. If you can get it to me around noonish, that'd be awesome. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so that's taken care of then. Hold on. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And sorry about making my notes on your sheet. All right. Number 3, there is no action on it this time. I just simply to tell you that's a discussion of elected official salaries again. We didn't get this in time to do this. It needs reflection. It needs to go through. You gentlemen need to see it and go through it and your thoughts on it, and before we release it generally to the public. So that being said, I ask that we take no action on that, other than to know that next Tuesday we have to take action in order to meet the required deadlines for notice and for notifying the elected officials. All right, number 4, discuss an action on designated officer upload rates forms to a appraisal district. Again, something we have to take each year in action is who do we designate? Discuss and/or action on designated officer upload rates, forms, etc. to the appraisal district database. We're now required by statute to designate an officer that uploads things to the appraisal district database. I think last year Susan did it, frankly. I'm
It's the popular track for the rates, is that what she's talking about? Yeah.
what the statute.
That's what it is. Is that what you know, all that to you?
So what do you feel good about?
Is that what you're trying to do?
And now,
It's all of it. Yes, the revenue, yeah.
yeah, for this year. Yeah.
Excel spreadsheet.
Right, it's just the code. The code now says we have to designate an officer. Before somebody just did it. The code says now. Yeah, okay, so,
They send me all of their information as well.
okay, in which case, you're making a motion to appoint the tax assessor collector to be the designated authorized.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I think the auditor can help and look over her shoulder, but since she actually has the software, the truth and taxation pays for it, I'm okay with that.
There's another reason also it has to be someone that certified. Registered in the state that have a tax.
That's the other thing. So we all help each other, but sometimes, you know, the proposed budget, I didn't do it all myself. Rachel, my wife, other people, you know, everybody helped in it. But sometimes somebody has to hold the title for purpose of legal. I think the correct person is tax assessor collector, exactly because what Saab said. But we're going to help her do it if she asks for, yeah, like always.
Make a motion.
So we have a motion and a second to appoint the tax assessor collector as a designated officer to upload rates, forms, and other information as required by the Texas Local Government Code to the appraisal district database. Discussion? Questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Number 5, discuss and approve to modifying PTO to be available for use after the first paycheck of employment. If you terminate employment for any reason, before your 3-year anniversary, you forfeit all unused PTO accrued. We couldn't make that statement any clearer on the agenda than we did. And so that's kind of what we're looking at today. The only question, is it effective immediately? Is it effective at the beginning of next payroll? 10/1, effective 10/1. Okay, because I think we need to notify folks of it too. Good. All right. So this is a price departure for us, but I'm effective 10/1. Anybody that starts on October 1, will give us time to get the administrative end of things done. That would be the new policy.
Exactly what it says here.
Yes, exactly what it says. We didn't know how to word it, so we're like, that sounds good. Put that on there.
And I think it's policy and we just.
Oh, great. Thank you, April. Appreciate it. Credit where credit's due. So motion and a second to adopt a policy approving and modifying PTO, paid time off, that is, for Hill County to be available for use after the first paycheck of employment. If you terminate employment for any reason before your 3-year anniversary, you forfeit all unused PTO accrued. This policy becoming effective on October the 1st, 2023. Further discussion? Is it like a general letdown in here? I think everybody had built up a little more, just kind of done a tension convention, but it seems really dead in this room at the moment. That's the vibe I'm getting. All right, well, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, any abstention, motion carries. That takes us, we were at number 6, so we're going to jump over to 7, which is discuss and approve a preliminary plat for Aquila Meadows Estate. Thank you, Mrs. Paul. All right, Aquila Meadows Estate is another very simple subdivision. As you can see, this particular subdivision is a series of lots that fronts a county road. Those lots are anywhere from about 1.44 acres to 2.93 acres, and that's kind of a 1414.
County Road 1414.
Yes, sir, 1414. You improve the road, and suddenly you get development on it. So anyway, it's been recommended for approval by the development committee. Has gone through. They've met all the necessary paperwork to do, but now it's up to this body to make a decision what they want to do.
$5.67.
I believe that is. I think that's right. Sorry, I've had a couple of long days since we last talked about that. But you have too, so. Gotcha, it's okay. All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Holcomb. There's a second. This is a preliminary plat, so we don't sign it. There's a motion, a second, any further discussion regarding the Aquila Meadows Estates Phase 1? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Yeah.
All opposed, any abstentions, motion carries. Number 8, we're coming back to an item we had to table. I'm sorry, Jim, we hope to do this. We had a confusion on the contract, and that was discuss and approve trade-in of a JD 75 mini excavator, trading amount of $49,000, and the execution of a 48-month lease, and that's $2,441.82 a month with a $1 purchase option on 2023 JD 85P mini X with the thumb attachment. Okay, all right, good deal. Did we get the corrected?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you got it.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, they,
I think I have, something attached.
well, we make a conditional approval, but we approve this contingent upon the county agreement, county attorney being satisfied.
Sure, we went back and forth with a couple of drafts of to fix the issue.
It was fine,
And
Oh,
the issue for
sorry.
them was, John Deere, since we're a governmental body, that once we sign the lease agreement itself is an agreement to purchase. So they weren't at the end of the contract.
It's not really an option.
It's really an option. And when you sign the lease, you're buying the unit.
Okay. Well, I mean, fair enough.
It's a financial arrangement.
I'm good with that, but a question, how do we carry that on our books? Is capital outlay or debt service?
Capital lease and then.
So capital lease is, yeah, capital lease is debt service, but
it goes to capital outlay.
we'll figure that out. That's the easy part. We can sit down and work on that one. So anyway, everybody says, yes, ma'am.
If it's one that you have, does that keep us out of the property tax issue?
Yeah.
That was the whole point of the.
Yeah. We've had pretty good luck over the years. Just this one group that we're dealing with can't seem to get it through their thick skulls.
Just, not that issue here.
Yeah, and so this is dear, so. Okay, well, there's a motion to approve.
Motion.
Is there a second? Motion is second to approve the aforementioned action item. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, any abstention, motion carries. Number 9, discussing our actual invoices. Gentlemen, you received an email from Mrs. Mangler from the treasurer's office. First order of business is I'm going to send some orders around. I need to be sending around for action items we've already taken today, aka the payroll. No, I'm sorry for the PTO. No, yeah. So moving on our invoices. So we have our accounts payable. I printed mine off, so that's something to look at. So what we've got is nothing out of the ordinary. We really look at this time of the year. I recommend everybody does, because we've built this budget upon the proposed budget we're coming up to upon a few assumptions, and that's your spending rate is not going to increase in August, September. If we see that it has, well, that obviously changes what we have available to start next year. So any major purchase, if you just give us a heads up, if you've got to really do something wild, let us know. So anyway, do I have a motion to approve the invoices? All right, invoices, motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, any abstention, motion carries. Next, pay the employees, who's for, who's against. Here, motion, get a second. Oh, okay, I wondered about that for a second. Second. Motion is second to pay everybody, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, any abstentions, motion carries. Number 11, discussion action on improved payroll wage status changes. We have a bunch of new hires in here today. Awesome. Jay Umino, welcome aboard, a new hire deputy. He's got about 5 years of experience. We got Gregory McLaren, new hire deputy. Good for him. Welcome aboard. We have some people that have moved along. Hannah Kennedy for CSCD is moving along. So is Christina Marmirno. We have Julia Jones at CSD is also moving along. Wage chat has changed. We have Angela Buck at the juvenile probation. She is getting phone lines in this thing. Again, Terry McElrath, same thing. I think they've been using their own phones over JPO for a number of years, and that's just not a fair thing to do. We're asking to do county business on it. Tina Lincoln, Marlon Pettis, Arnulfo Perez, those people are all with JPO as well. Jose Solis, hey, great. We got a guy that's got an interpreter, so that's wonderful. We always need more folks that are bilingual in the county. We've got Kelsey Smith that went through certification of field training. Michael Horton is now Jailer 1. Congratulations, Mr. Horton. Patrick Akins, I almost said Adams, forgive me. Again, he's specialized skilled pay for FTO. And then Hannah Rose added her intermediate jailer certificate. I thought she was clerical. She's been to jail.
That was Pam, that was Spencer Dollar.
Sorry, got the name wrong. Thank you very much for the clarification. My apologies, ma'am. So, all right, those are the employee wage status changes for this state. Motion is second to approve. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, any abstentions, your motion carries. Number 12, and that's discussion and action proposed budget item. We have, oh, wait a minute, 3 days, 4 days to think about what we said last week. I've tried to incorporate everything that we talked about in here. Due to difficulties with the software, which we've now abandoned, going forward, things are going to get faster. You're just now getting a copy of this. That being said, questions, concerns, commentaries, because this is not the proposed budget for public release. This is what we've talked about. This is a preliminary, a draft, if you will. I will file a proposed budget before 5 o'clock today. Let me be clear about that. I will file my statutorily required proposed budget by 5 o'clock today. So if you call me at 5:15, you call me at 4:30, you call me at 4 o'clock, say I need to change. Sorry about you. We'll do that later in the adopted budget. This is a lot of work to get this to this point. So we're going to fix things. If you got it, get it to me before 2 o'clock today, pretty please. One would be better. Gives us time to get back in, reshuffle the deck, because how this works now. The Excel spreadsheet I can print directly, but it's old and kind of boring. Nobody liked it. So we're putting into Excel and then putting those Excel sheets to PDF. We've got Adobe PDF on my computer, we're basically reshuffling the deck. I need to borrow somebody's color printer. Okay, cool. I've only got black and white, and so I got to print one of these for the proposed in color. But this is the basic form and format. And then take you guys through this real quick. So everybody reading along again. Oh, that's nice here. Anyway, we have a proposed budget. The first page is proposed budget page. Yes, we took that off Gravity. I figured we pay for it. We're not stealing it. Second is our old budget form. The proposed budget contains unfunded mandates from the state of Texas. That statement will never go away because it'll never not be true. And it talks about who the judge, the auditor is, the commissioners, whatnot. On page 3, you've got my budget amendment letter. It's something I've wanted to do for many years that we've not been able to with the old format, and I was not allowed to last year because of time constraints. I'd like to put in what our goals are. This is a public document. What is my thinking when I propose this? Why do I have things the way I have them? And this pretty much lays that down for better or worse. Next, the budget certificate. Again, this is a proposed budget. Myself and the auditor are required to sign off on that from the county clerk. Page 5 starts off your table of contents, and I will tell you that they are correct, because Ms. Lewis went through those last night and told me what wasn't correct multiple times. We go off to our recapitulation page. So at the proposed tax rate, we're looking at a beginning balance, unless something really dumb happens, of about 8.145670 million, and the general fund ending balance of 8.238. Overall, a total of 10,093,473. That's across all 13 major funds, and then an ending balance of 10,139,451. So about 50,000 to the good. Understand this, whatever we do, that ain't gonna look like that when we're done. We're going to put in a deficit budget for the adopted budget. Let me explain why. I think there's native money in here to get pretty close to that. And I'm pretty familiar with this. To do this right now, I've got some capital outlay money and here that's stashed aside. What I will have to do for the capital outlay is I will have to go in one time to our unbudgeted reserve, which I think it's a little high, and use that money for these capital projects. It's one-time money. It's not reoccurring. There's no need to do it again. I cannot afford to take out an unbudgeted revenue and put it into reoccurring things. That just won't work for us. So what I'm going to have to do to meet that number, what we're going to, I'm sorry. What y'all are going to have to do for this right commissioner's budget now. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to figure out how to strip this thing down to make that work. Now, I left some wiggle room in here for us. There's some things and contingencies that we put aside to take care of problems, but more importantly, to take care of this. This budget is going to take care of the compensation problem as of October. That's budgeted in here. It's hopefully going to get us where we need to be on the evergreen solution. This budget further puts aside or will ultimately be a deficit budget because we will pull money out of the unbudgeted reserve for the capital projects this next year, which I estimate to be the tune of about $2 million. If we're going to get started on the sheriff's office administration, we're going to get started on JP3. If we're going to pick up additional properties we identified that we would like to as they come on the market, instead of having to go down any kind of eminent domain, which I detest using, frankly. And then those things, we got to have some money set aside for it. That's why we have the unbudgeted revenue so high. Over the years, we saved. It's time for action now. And that's something we have to do. So anyway, other than that, you're gonna look down through your road and bridge numbers. You'll see on the recapitulation page number 7 that you guys have additional funds, and all of those have not been allocated yet. They will be for the adopted budget. But remember, everybody else, they pay for the employees out of the general fund. You guys pay for your employees out of your funds. So I need to know what that looks like, what we're going to adopt before I can recalculate all those numbers, and you can allocate those monies the way you need to. So that's kind of it. If you go into our statistical data on page number 8, that again, everything above the double line is correct. It's the interest and sinking fund obligations. All I need on that is the beginning balance and the total of October 1, 2023 on the series 2022 construction tax notes and the limited refunding series 2020. And I'll need the total debt outstanding or estimated outstanding as of September 30, 2024. It's on the aforementioned notes. It's just a couple of numbers. I put it in there for public disclosure so the world can see. Moving over, we did things something a little differently. Revenue projections by fund. Instead of everything being crammed together on 3 sheets, and you're like, what is up, what is down? We have gone back and formatted it closer to the Gravity format with some changes, whereby the actual revenue takes place across multiple sheets now unlike it used to, and you can see it runs all the way to page 23 on your revenue, with the last revenue being interest and sinking. Those are our calculations, our estimates of what revenue should be. As you know, every year we go into this process, we refine those numbers as we go forward. I really think these numbers are fairly solid. We will look at them again later in this process, before September 5th, to make sure that our estimates hold up. Again, if we have anybody that goes off and truck goes out of service, you got to buy a new truck, something like that. That's going to really change some of that starting stuff. So we need to keep close eye on budgetary expenditures like we always do in the next month and two, so that we don't find ourselves off. The revenue projection fund end on page 23. You start on page 27, your departmental expenditures, and you can go through county judge. I put myself first, like we always have, because I'm under the same scrutiny everybody else is, and I want everybody to see what I'm proposing in my budgets. So, people have an issue, that is what it is. Right now, it's the exact same as last year. Well, slightly under. I have a programmatic error in the calculation for elected officials that I have to fix before I reprint this and file it this afternoon. Again, I based it just very simply without doing the math up front on 26 pay periods. We actually have 26.0719 pay periods. I will use a factor of 26.1 pay periods just to make sure that we have enough money set aside in these budgets to cover those. Outside of that, the rest of the salaries look exactly like they looked last Friday when we made the draw. So nothing's changed. That'll change moving forward in the final budget. So as you can see, your ends on interest and sinking on your expenditures on page 90. On special budgets, which then starts, we've separated those out. We have reorganized these budgets. What do you mean by reorganized? Well, they didn't make any sense numerically over the years in the old one. They just had to tack on the end. We put them back in numerical order, so the way they should be. So these funds will start off with your 266 funds, and those funds run all the way through your last, which is your 400 fund. I'm sorry, 300 fund, 314 fund, which is your tax note construction. And that's that tax note construction fund is where we're paying for the remainder out of Covington Street. That's what's coming out of there. So going past the AP AR, forgive me, I said that it's actually one that is out of order, and that's our ARP grant funds. I found it late, so I put it in late, and might have to reorder, I said. Supporting documentation starts on page 115, 114, 113. You have here what we use as our calculations of how the ad valorem rates are divvied up amongst the departments. Basically, all that, as I understand, is still based off a formula where the sued themselves or sued each other in the 80s. And we still operate, again, page 116 is a continuation. It shows you how the general fund road and bridge breaks down and how all of that ad valorem tax revenue is allocated. And accordingly, also how the flood control in lieu of tax auto registration fees are all allocated amongst the funds as well. 117 continues that math and shows you our internal thinking about how we got to these numbers. If you find a mathematical error, let us know. It's Excel, so we hope we don't find one, but if you do, we need to know about it. Next, after that, are the tax rate calculation worksheets that the Henry County Tax Assessor Collector has prepared. We are required to make these a part of our budget, so we just add them in the supporting documentation. And you'll see that carries in through the general fund and the FM lateral. And finally, on the last page, we have a recognition that this budget was prepared by myself, County Auditor Sahib, and County Treasurer, Ms. Rachel Parker. That's what we're looking at right now. No action. So my deal is I don't need action from the board to file a proposed. We've been shipping this internally for a couple of days over the weekend, trying to make sure that the layout is easy to read, easy to understand. Our goal is transparency in numbers, how we do things so everybody knows. We can disagree with our allocation of funds. That's a fair argument to have. But disagreeing with the actual numbers we use to get to where we're at, that's not an argument we can have. Those numbers are either right or they're wrong. There's no two ways about it. I have confidence in the numbers I've received from the auditor, the tax assessor collector, the treasurer, and numbers I've looked at my own are correct when it comes to revenues. I believe those numbers are accurate. Again, the expenditures, we will have to tweak expenditures depending on the outcome of discussions and deliberations by this body on the Evergreen solution. And there may be a few other things that rise up. I know that the number I saw this morning is going to be tough. That's going to be a tough number that I got in front of me. I'm not saying I can't do it. I'm just simply saying that means there's nothing extra. There's some things that we have to do that we're gonna have to trade off and have conversations about. I don't know what that looks like in the long run, but I can tell you. Up to 1.8, 1.9, it's sustainable. After that. In those numbers, I'm not certain of yet, because why I'm not certain is if we wind up ending the budget year because people busted budgets across the board, that number drops precipitously. That's it. So what I'm doing right now is going back, what are we gonna do? The starting number always fluctuates from the time to the time we do the adopted. It's simply a factor. We're making very educated guesses about expenses. If those expenses rise, obviously the starting number goes down for the overall. If the expenses are low, our starting number goes up. That's just something to keep in mind. If people ask, well, what effect do we have on these decisions? How much money we have available in the year at this point? We've still got some vehicles we've talked about. We're waiting on numbers. There's also some things we have to do on our end. So those are considerations in the expenditures. That's kind of where I'm at right now, guys. Yes, sir. No, okay. Questions about any of this? Give everybody time to think and ask questions if they got them. All right, know this, from this point forward, every Tuesday morning, we're gonna see everybody smiling face in here. We're gonna be meeting all the way through the end of September. I have the 5th as our proposed time to take action on this budget right now. I want to try to keep that. But God forbid something come up, can we push past? I think we got a wiggle room there if we had to, but I'm still shooting for September 5th. If we got our notices in a timely fashion, they get in the paper, they get online. We're still good for the 5th of September to hold the budget hearing, the tax hearing, and then adopt those. But anything that comes up over the next couple of weeks, meet us here on Tuesday morning at 8:30. We'll have a pot of coffee going. We'll have budget workshop and action on budget. Afterwards, and every agenda moving out until we adopt one. So if something comes up today or tomorrow, you know about it, let me know. All right. That's all I've got on that. Does anybody else have anything in discussion, action, proposed budget? Okay, in which case this time I have on this a executive session and pursuant to Texas Government Code Chapter 55107, the Hill County Commissioners will convene into executive session for consultation with attorneys. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess to clear the courtroom, and then we will come back after this for any action necessary as a result of it. Make Jim mad.
Well, actually, it's Friday when
two that I handed out this morning, we're waiting on the clerk. Thank you, ma'am. This budget is not exactly what I'm gonna file this afternoon. Whatever I file this afternoon, it's gonna have some changes on some calculations. What I filed this afternoon, I will email to everybody, so everybody's got a copy of the proposed going forward. We're all working from a common book. So, all right, we're gonna call this meeting back to order. This is a continuation from executive session. It's a continuation of a meeting that started this morning at 8:30 a.m. Record reflected is currently 10:23 a.m. It is still the 15th day of August 2023. And our number 14 item is reconvene regular meeting to discuss and approve any action needed as a result of executive session. It is, I will make a motion that we allow the county attorney of Hill County, Texas to accept notice in the Olson v. Hill County suit. And Olson v. Hill County. And that the county attorney is authorized to defend said suit, which includes filing an answer or general denial.
Second there.
I thought you were still.
I have to go back and look.
All right, in which case, I'll after the new discussion on this. Just for those viewers at home, the lawsuit is over a county road. We are only a party because we have to be. The county has nothing at stake in this suit, but it will resolve hopefully a long-standing feud between some neighbors. So again, that's what I got. And if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, one abstention because it is in precinct 3, and I think that's a wise move to do so. So please let the record reflect that the motion was 4 voting in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention being Commissioner Hawkins. All right.
You're falling behind there, buddy. Make a motion, adjourn. Second.
Motion second. We stand adjourned. Thank you for your attention to these matters.